Who are the best corners in the NFL today? What's going on, bottom line viewers and NFL fans? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to give you my top 25 corners in the NFL entering 2023. If that sounds great, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe to the channel for more BLV NFL position rankings all summer long. Lastly, don't forget to get in that comment section and let me know which corner is your favorite in the NFL right now. Now, let's rank some corners. Kicking off my top 25 corners in the NFL today, at number 25, Carlton Davis of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Carlton Davis is simply one of the most competitive press man corners in the NFL, and he has been since about 2019. Also since about 2019, under Todd Bowles, Davis has been the corner that a majority of the time, Bowles tasks Davis with following and matching the #1 wide receiver on the opposing team. He is the matchup corner in that secondary. And when he is allowed to play press man coverage, he has shown that he is a top corner in that category, in that scheme across the NFL. What he's very good at is making every catch contested. You rarely see Carlton Davis get burnt. He's always in the vicinity to make a play on the football, and he regularly gets his hands on the ball or forces an incompletion due to his savviness at the catch point or his pure strength and physicality at the catch point. Carlton Davis consistently is up there in pass breakups, forced incompletions, and he's always a tough guy to have a high completion percentage against because he's so good at the line of scrimmage, knocking receivers off their route, or just being great in those contested scenarios. So Carlton Davis, really good football player, has slid down the list a little bit because the Bucs have swayed more towards zone coverage over man coverage. But in more man coverage scenarios, I think he's an excellent player. At number 24, Mike Hilton of the Cincinnati Bengals. There was absolutely no way that I was going to leave Mike Hilton off of my top 25 corners list. Despite being undersized and despite playing at the nickel position, I just had to put Hilton on this list because he's so valuable to one of the best teams in the NFL. His role as a nickel back to be able to be really good in a majority of different things that they do, to be able to blitz and be effective as a blitzer and a rusher to get to the quarterback, to be able to sense the running game and shoot into the backfield and make stops and tackles at a very high rate, very consistently season after season. I would argue he might be the best tackling nickel corner or run defending nickel corner in the NFL right now. And then on top of all of that, yes, he can play some man coverage and match up with slot receivers, and he's extremely intelligent and great dropping into zone coverage over the middle of the field. And they largely task him with covering a lot of those shifty guys from the slot position and some of the best receivers in the NFL. So he just has so many different roles, he has so much versatility, and he has so much pressure to perform at a high level for this defense to be successful. He's absolutely a top 25 player at this position. At number 23, DJ Reed of the New York Jets. The New York Jets don't only have one shutdown corner, they have two shutdown corners, and the other one, the overlooked one, is DJ Reed. DJ Reed was excellent last year for the New York Jets, consistently ranking at the top of the league in basically every coverage stat. He's a perfect fit for Robert Saleh's scheme, primarily zone coverage, but he can also dabble in man coverage. And the thing with Reed is that for a 5'9" cornerback who does have the feet and the quickness to match opposing receivers and have the speed to be able to match vertical. He's also somebody that's not outmatched on the outside in terms of physicality or in terms of contested scenarios. You very rarely see him just get mossed. Very rarely at all for a guy that's 5'9". You would think he's a slot corner, but he's actually a perimeter corner. He's a great fit for the Jets. He's a perfect complement to Sauce Gardner, and he's one of the best number 2 corners in the NFL right now. Don't sleep on DJ Reed. At number 22, Chidobe Awuzie of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the second Cincinnati corner already on this list. Awuzie is the best of them, and he was missed late last season. He was down and out after 8 games. But in that 8-game stretch, believe it or not, Chidobe Awuzie was one of the best cover men in all of football. Up there in terms of passer rating allowed, completion percentage, all the statistics across the board. Chidobe Awuzie was dominant as their number 1 corner on the perimeter. He has really found a home. He was good in Dallas, like a very solid player. But in Cincinnati, I don't know what it has been about Big Lou's defensive scheme and how he fits there, but the guy's got really good speed, solid size, and he's just grown. A lot of these corners in their early years, they've got the physical talent, but they don't have the intelligence. They don't pick up on offenses. Feels like Awuzie has done that very well. And I think the number 1 thing I like about him is how he's able to match receivers in terms of changing direction. He's very smooth in his agility. And I do think that coming off of injury, it's going to be interesting to see if he can replicate last year. But I think he's one of the most slept on number 1 corners on a defense that just in general doesn't get enough credit. At number 21, throw up the X. It's XAVIEN Howard of the Miami Dolphins. And I know 21 for Howard seems extremely low at any point in any season. But man, he was really bad last year. From a statistical standpoint, he allowed one of the highest passer ratings in the league. I believe he allowed the most yards in the NFL last year and a lot of touchdowns. But why is he still on this list if he was that bad? Now, part of it is the scheme, right? Miami last year was an extremely blitz-heavy team, an extremely zero blitz team, which means there's no safeties over the top. And when you're playing that style, it's extremely boom or bust. So you're going to get a lot of sacks and a lot of turnovers from your defense. You're going to get a lot of stops, but you're also going to give up a lot of big plays. And that was kind of the problem. He wasn't at his peak level of play and performance, and you also saw that in his turnovers. He didn't get the same amount of interceptions that he usually typically does. But I would expect a big bounce back here this next season under Vic Fangio in maybe a more conservative scheme where it hides his deficiencies in terms of his speed down the field a little bit, just as it might for Jalen Ramsey. He's been a very good player for a long time, so I don't want to discount him too much based on only 1 season. But there's no doubt that he didn't play as well in 2022. At number 20, L'Jarius Sneed of the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think a lot of people or a lot of NFL fans would have L'Jarius Sneed in their top 20 corners in the NFL, but I think those people have not been paying close enough attention to what he does for the Chiefs. So L'Jarius Sneed throughout his career has been able to play outside, but he's been most effective inside, and that was never more true than last year. They basically didn't move him out of that spot last year because he was so effective. He was putting up sacks. He put up the most tackles of any player at corner, including slot corner, with over 100 tackles last year. And that also came in the way of the most stops, the most negative plays generated from the slot position. So L'Jarius Sneed was able to not only be a good, solid cover man, which he's not the best in the NFL, but he is very good, very capable in both zone and man coverage, and good in press coverage as well. And then he's also become a really well-rounded player within the box that I don't think gets enough credit for his ability. We've talked about Mike Hilton, and a lot of people know about what he does for Cincinnati, but L'Jarius Sneed has become his counterpart in Kansas City, and he's actually probably better in pure coverage. So L'Jarius Sneed is in my top 20 for his versatility for the Chiefs' Super Bowl defense. At number 19, Jamel Dean of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jamel Dean, man, he's been my guy since day one. Everyone knows it, especially the BLV Discord. But Jamel Dean is just a really good player. Now, there's some, I think, that maybe overrate Jamel Dean just a little bit, like PFF, for instance. But if you actually watch Tampa Bay, there's things that you absolutely love about Jamel Dean, and there's things that he could still get better at. Like, he's still a bit raw, and he entered the NFL as a big, tall, long, fast athlete. He's actually molded himself the last couple of years into being a very good cover corner. But the one area that stands out for Jamel Dean not being extremely elite is he doesn't have too much versatility. Like, he doesn't ever play inside. He's pretty much a boundary corner due to his length and his speed. He very rarely gets beat deep at all. I've never really seen him get beat deep because of his speed. And he can catch up, and if he is kind of beat on a play, he can definitely recover very quickly, and that's where he does make some plays. But secondly, his biggest weakness is his ball skills. He's not very good at intercepting passes or getting his hands on the ball, but man, he is just really good in terms of not allowing receivers to even be open on a lot of plays where quarterbacks don't even want to throw in his vicinity a lot of the times. Like, if you look at stats like snaps per reception, right, where you take into account how often a guy's actually targeted, Jamel Dean isn't targeted almost at all. And then on top of that, when he is targeted, he has consistently generated a below average passer rating, a below average completion percentage, and not very many touchdowns against. So Jamel Dean has turned into kind of more of a shutdown guy than a playmaker at this position. At number 18, Jonathan Jones of the New England Patriots. Talk about underappreciated. Jonathan Jones is the definition. Last season, after being a majority of the time throughout his career, only strictly a nickel corner, and one of the best, if not the best, cover nickel corner in football since about 2017, he made the switch to perimeter corner and essentially became the best top #1 corner for the New England Patriots on the outside. Post JC Jackson, post Stephon Gilmore. Jonathan Jones was really good playing on the outside in a position that he's never really played before. He was asked to play against the likes of TYREEQ HILL and Justin Jefferson and go man-to-man and play a lot of man-to-man coverage against some of the best receivers in the NFL. And despite being undersized for a majority of the year in a majority of the matchups, he fared well. I would say that he is a better #2 option due to his versatility and due to the fact he's a little undersized. But where he's absolutely phenomenal is his quickness, his speed, to be able to match up with those shifty receivers. He's always been the ideal matchup for those type of players. And last year, I think he showcased his intelligence, his ball skills, putting up 4 picks, making a lot of plays on the ball, and being a game changer for this defense, as well as now a leader post Evan McCourty. Jonathan Jones is a Patriots Patriot. At number 17, James Bradberry of the Philadelphia Eagles. James Bradberry, I think, is going to be, for a lot of people, maybe a little bit too low. And then for some, I think you can see my side of why I ranked him at number 17. So James Bradberry obviously put up ludicrously impressive numbers last year. In terms of passer rating allowed, he was #1 in the NFL. He was the #2 corner in Philadelphia. Before that, he was struggling a little bit in New York as the #1 guy, playing a lot of the time man coverage. He goes to Philadelphia and he plays mostly zone coverage, spot drop zone, pretty basic coverages. And in front of him, it's a lot of great pass rushing. It's the most sacks I think we've ever seen. It's always quarterbacks under pressure, getting rid of the ball quickly. So it's easier to cover when you're that type of player, and when you're that smart, when you're that experienced, when you're a veteran of this game, and when you're physical at the line of scrimmage. James Bradberry, he's in a perfect scenario to thrive. So to me, the fact that he's a number 2 corner, he doesn't really track receivers a lot, and he plays a lot of zone coverage with a really good front 7, that's what kind of takes away from me ranking him in the top 10 or the top 15, as well as his age. I don't think he's going to play as well as he did last year, just given his age. So I think he's a little limited, but what he is doing, he is exceptional at. So that's why he's on the list and in the position that he is in. At number 16, TARIQ Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks. TARIQ Woolen is almost the opposite of James Bradberry when it comes to Bradberry's a veteran, proven guy who got put in a perfect scenario. TARIQ Woolen is a young guy that I still need time to prove to me, are you a shutdown number 1 corner? Are you that dude? Because obviously you can turn the football over. We get it. 6 picks, all that. Now, he allowed his fair share of plays as well, but I think he was extremely impressive as an underdrafted number 1 corner, thrusted into the starting lineup almost immediately. That's a really difficult place to be on a secondary that really had no one else as a premier option. So TARIQ Woolen was super impressive. I think what stands out to me is just his physical traits. He's got great size, he's got great speed, he's got really rare feet and change of direction for a guy that big. And I could see him morphing into an exceptional matchup guy on bigger receivers in this league. And I think he's a perfect fit for what Seattle likes to do, because they don't ask their perimeter corners to really play lateral that much, and it's a lot of vertical. So I think that Woolen is a perfect fit given his length, his speed, and his size. I think he can be a very good corner for many years to come, and now he's going to be joined alongside a corner that's very different from him, a first-round pick in Devin Witherspoon that I think will also be able to help him and mask maybe some of his deficiencies in certain matchups. At number 15, AJ Terrell of the Atlanta Falcons. AJ Terrell has had such a strange career, because I remember loving him coming out of the draft. He maybe a little bit of time to get used to the NFL game, but then not too long into it, he really stood out as a premier option, as one of the best young rising corners in the game. And he's had years where he's been exceptional, elite, top 5 cornerback play. And then he's also had moments where he's been beat too often. Like last year, he allowed way too many touchdowns for my liking. I believe the number was 9. But he also showcased what he can do so well last year in the brief time that he actually played last season. He's got to stay a little bit healthier, and he's got to be a bit more consistent. That is kind of my thing with AJ Terrell. He's a little bit of a roller coaster, but when he's on his game, there are not many corners that are as smooth as AJ Terrell. His ability to change direction, to break on the football, to be able to sense in zone coverage that what the quarterback's going to do, what the receivers are trying to do to him. His ability to read the game is at a very high level, and he's still exceptionally young, so I expect him to continue to thrive. He's just got to be a bit more consistent, and that might be able to come with age. At number 14, Charvarius Ward of the San Francisco 49ers. Charvarius Ward last offseason, was one of my favorite signings, because he gave the Niners a real number 1 corner. Not necessarily in terms of a shutdown, absolutely awesome Darrelle Revis in his prime type player, but just a guy that you know can match up with number 1 wide receivers, especially the outside big variety like the DK Metcalfs of the world in their own division, and be able to be very physical, be able to play press man coverage, be able to break up a lot of balls, make life difficult on quarterbacks, and be feisty and have that same energy as Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and the rest of this defense. And I felt like Charvarius Ward almost immediately felt at home with San Francisco. And with Ward, they actually played into his strengths more. They actually shifted into playing a little bit more risky in their coverages or playing more man coverages. And that made their defense a lot more versatile and a lot more adaptable and a lot better. I felt like the Niners defense last year was as good as any unit they've had since 2019. And I think a lot of that came down to they actually had a legit guy who could play one-on-one coverage with a lot of the best receivers in football. Charvarius Ward has always been a bit underappreciated, and I think he's starting to get his respect alongside a lot of elite players in San Francisco. At number 13, TRE'DAVIUS White of the Buffalo Bills. TRE'DAVIUS White last year obviously was put in a very difficult situation. He had to come back from a very serious injury, and we knew that he wasn't necessarily going to be the same player like one of the top 3 to 5 best corners in football, and at times he's been, in my opinion, the best zone cover corner in the NFL. Last year, he wasn't quite that, but when you do look at his numbers, you look at his stuff like completion percentage or reception percentage allowed, you look at passer rating, obviously still very elite in that category. He always gets his hands on the football. And then you think about he's not too old. I think physically he'll have an off season to get his legs under him, work back into football shape, and I think that's going to make him closer to what he used to be, which is what I'm kind of counting on here as a true shutdown number one, kind of not necessarily man follow you across the field, but like your side of the field, it's locked up. You can't throw the ball there because TRE'DAVIUS White is going to ball hawk it and you're going to be in trouble. And that's what he's really good at. He is great at getting into that back pedal, stopping and going after the football or breaking up passes, and he's got good length, good size, can match up with pretty much any type of wide receiver, and he's one of the smartest corners in football still. At number 12, Trevon Diggs of the Dallas Cowboys. Diggs is not quite as good as his brother, in my opinion, but he is a very good football player, especially when it comes to being one of the best zone cover corners in the NFL right now. I believe Pro Football Focus has graded him as the best zone cover corner in the league for the past 2 to 3 years. So that speaks volumes. And when you look at his game, it's going to be an interesting dynamic between him and the veteran Stephon Gilmore with how they play off of each other. Because so much of what made Diggs such an impactful player is his ability to break on the football and just be a playmaker and have that football sense of being able to intercept passes, take them to the house, be able to break on the ball when it's in the air, tipped up in the air. And last year, it felt like, yeah, he became a better player. He became a better cover player. He became better in shutdown coverage and staying close to receivers and not being as risky. And he understood that criticism and he worked on it. And I especially like him in matchups with bigger receivers where he's able to get his hands on them and he's got unique size for the position. But to me, with Gilmore there now to take kind of more of the load of like being the cover guy, now Diggs can kind of loosen up a little bit, almost like how JC Jackson did with Gilmore, and then be able to have that ball production once again in 2023, which is extremely promising for Dallas's defense moving forward. I think Diggs is a really good football player. He's not quite elite in my opinion, but he's right there. At number 11, Denzel Ward of the Cleveland Browns. Feels like a lot of people are down on Denzel Ward entering 2023. But I honestly feel like it's more of a situational flaw or a team philosophy flaw than anything else when it comes to Denzel Ward's play. And it's not like his stats necessarily showcase a bad player or a regressing player. Maybe he's not at his peak or isn't playing as well as he did 2-3 years ago. But in my opinion, when you look at Denzel Ward's game and his skill set, there are not many corners that you would prefer in terms of a physical makeup. He's got pretty good height, definitely, good enough. He's got really good quickness and exceptional speed, and he's able to play in zone and man coverage. And I especially I think with Schwartz there, he's going to make Denzel Ward better. I think just the refining of the coverages in the back end, the production from the pass rush, I think is going to be greater, which is going to allow Denzel Ward to take more risks in coverage. And I think Ward has always been one of those guys where he has so much speed that he doesn't really have to worry about, a lot of receivers just running by him, so he can kind of break on the football, take more chances at the line of scrimmage type deal, and he is really good at playing that fine line as a corner. So Denzel Ward, to me, has all the talent to be back in the top 10. He's just coming off a bit of a down year. Entering the top 10, at number 10, Jaycee Horn of the Carolina Panthers. Now, this is a little bit of a risky selection at number 10, or maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, and I totally understand that. But just based on what Jaycee Horn has been able to do through 2 seasons in the NFL, he deserves to be on this list despite not being a consistent player on the field, like in terms of being available. When he's been on the field, he's been one of the most dominant cover players in all of football. He's one of the best already at press man coverage, and you guys know how much I appreciate press man coverage, being a Patriots fan. And I think Jaycee Horn has the potential, if he can stay available, to be one of the best shutdown corners in the NFL. That is why he's in the top 10, because when we've seen him play, I've never seen him have a bad game. I've never seen him get mossed. I've never seen him just be outmatched against any single receiver. And we obviously felt his presence when he left the team last year in the games that he was not there. So he's obviously valuable, and he brings something to the table. So Horn is a really good football player that I don't think has gotten the recognition, because he just needs to play a full year where people can get the sense of how good he actually is. At number 9, Tyson Campbell of the Jacksonville Jags. Tyson Campbell is probably the corner in the NFL right now that I think this next season is going to start to get a lot of buzz, but it's already happened. If you actually watch Jacksonville and actually study their defense and what they ask Tyson Campbell to do, which I think is a really big thing that a lot of people miss when it comes to the corner position. What are you asking this football player to do? And a lot of times Tyson Campbell is the guy matching up with receivers, the number 1 guy. Okay, it's 4th and 3. AJ Brown is on the Eagles. They're going to throw to AJ Brown. We're putting Tyson Campbell on him, and it's really hard to stop a slant to AJ Brown because of how big and physical he is. Well, Tyson Campbell, he's got pretty good size, pretty good length, really good at the line of scrimmage and press coverage, really nasty, and he breaks up the pass, And then you can play him against guys that are fast or shifty because he's got exceptional speed. He's really molded himself into a player that, from college, had all the measurables to be a really good corner. And even on film, when you studied him coming out of college, he was always there, but he never really made the plays. And now in the NFL, you see him making plays on the ball, which I think is what's changed his game. So he is a legit number 1 corner that you can pretty much put on any player in any situation, and that's how Jacksonville treats him. That's why he's number 9. At number 8, MARSHON LATTIMORE of the New Orleans Saints. MARSHON LATTIMORE is somebody that is always so hard to rank, because I feel like he's a little bit of a roller coaster of a football player. There's moments where MARSHON LATTIMORE is the most dominant corner in the NFL. There was a game against the Eagles this past year where I felt like he was lights out. Obviously, every Mike Evans game that he's ever played. And then there's moments where he gets beat like for 2 touchdowns in a game, and you're like, is that the same guy? I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if it's because they ask him to play so much press man coverage that you're just, like XAVIEN Howard, bound to be beat and bound to have a stretch of time where you're not great. But then again, like last year, he was injured for a large portion of the season. I think if he would have played a full year, he might have been a little bit higher. Overall, though, there are not many players that, as a perimeter man corner, I would take above him. So I still got to rank him at number 8 because I appreciate his skill set and his game so much. I just would want him to be a little bit more consistent to be a top 5 player. At number 7, Darius Slay of the Philadelphia Eagles. Darius Slay had one of his best seasons of his long, awesome career in the NFL, and I think at this point, he's a borderline Hall of Fame player. Like, he's done a lot throughout his career. He's had seasons where he's been one of the top ball production, interception guys. He's been on great defenses now with Philadelphia, and he's been to the Super Bowl, and he's had longevity to his career. He's played in a lot of different systems. I think what we've seen with Slay is he's been able to figure out maybe what he's not great at and then kind of tweak it or kind of understand it and then play to his strengths. And Philadelphia is kind of a perfect scenario for him where he's really good in zone coverage. He's really good at especially playing that third. And then he's really good at breaking on the football, breaking up passes, being able to read what an offense, you know, from a route standpoint, distribution standpoint, or a quarterback reading the defense standpoint, how to kind of make those plays. And he's not the best man coverage guy or the best man coverage kind of shutdown guy. But in terms of just in his area of the field, he's shutting that down. And you got to be careful because he will pick you off and he will jump routes a lot of the time. So Darius Slay, I think, has not lost his athleticism so much as he has just been able to adjust to maybe some things in other systems where he wasn't so great at it. And his smarts have kept him at such a high level throughout his long, really good career. At number 6, Stephon Gilmore of the Dallas Cowboys. Stephon Gilmore is still one of the best corners in the NFL, and if you do not believe so, I would recommend getting your head checked or your eyes examined or something in that medical field, because last year, there were not many corners that were more impactful in the biggest moments of football games than Stephon Gilmore. There was at least 2 or 3 games that I recall from the absolutely horrific Indianapolis Colts team last year where Stephon Gilmore pretty much won them the game. I don't know how many corners you can say that about in any given season, but Gilmore is one of the greatest corners in my opinion of all time, and especially when it comes to man coverage. Over the last 2 seasons, 2021 and 2022, he has not been a Patriot. He is the #1 graded man coverage corner in the NFL. So if you think that he's lost a step, not necessarily true. Is he 2019 Gilmore? No, but he's still really, really darn good. And the thing about him going to Dallas is he is obviously amazing in man coverage, press man coverage on the outside, but he's really good in every coverage, which is why I give him so much credit for being so high on my list despite his age and potential regression at this age. You can put him in any system and he'll be good. And that's why he's my number 6 on this list. And you could argue he's even higher. At number 5, Marlon Humphrey of the Baltimore Ravens. I think Marlon Humphrey has had a bit of an up and down career where at times he's been top 10, lower top 10. At times he's been closer to top 5. And I felt like last year was maybe his best season of his career from a pure coverage standpoint. Last year, I believe he was the highest graded man coverage corner in football, but he played less man coverage last year than he typically does, given the switch in scheme for the Ravens. I think it was a great move for Marlon Humphrey in particular, because Marlon Humphrey is a really big, rare corner. He's big, he looks like a linebacker, he wears 44, he's thick. And why I put him in the top 5 is not only did he have an exceptional season, which according to PFF, he did not allow a touchdown. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but he did not allow a touchdown according to PFF. And then on top of that, he could play outside or inside. So he has the versatility, even though he's bigger, to play nickel or perimeter guy. And then he's also good enough to play matchup and play against Jamar Chases and those type of guys and be asked to do that. At the same time as also being an effective turnover player where he can punch the ball out and create forced fumbles, pick the pass off, or even play in the run game because of his size. So Marlon Humphrey is just such a good all-around football player. That's why I have him at number 5. At number 4, Jalen Ramsey of the Miami Dolphins. I'm still kind of getting used to Jalen Ramsey on the Miami Dolphins. It is a little strange to me, but I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air for Jalen Ramsey, being able to play alongside another guy that's been one of the best corners in football for many years in XAVIEN Howard, playing with a coach like Vic Fangio, who probably already has a good sense for Jalen's strengths and weaknesses because it's a very similar scheme to what Brandon Staley had with the Rams, where Ramsey was probably the best corner in the league. So Jalen Ramsey, man, what can you really say about this guy? I think he's a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's done so much, all pros, best corner in the league. He's been a Super Bowl champion. But I think the thing that stands out for me about Jalen Ramsey is his physicality. I've never really seen corners that are renowned for their coverage skills like Jalen Ramsey is be so good and so impactful as a physical force, almost in an intimidating fashion. He can make big hits and big tackles in big moments. And I've never really seen him get ran over. I've never really seen him just absolutely whiff on a tackle. Like, Jalen Ramsey is a really physical football player on top of being a really savvy cover man. So with his age, maybe getting up there now, I do feel like that is going to really help him because he's going to be able to play inside, outside, safety maybe. He is just such a complete secondary defensive back. That's why he's number 4, even if he's lost a little bit in terms of pure man-to-man skill. At number 3, Jaire Alexander of the Green Bay Packers. Alexander, in my opinion, in any given week, has the man-to-man ability to be the best corner that week. He has the ability to walk on a football field and lock up Justin Jefferson, and there's simply not that many players that can say that. Without any help, it's just Alexander. He's going to shut him down. That's hard to do. Now, Alexander needs to prove to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit better all around. A little bit more impactful in terms of consistently be good in the run game, good tackler, good in zone, good in man, all around. I love his skill set. I love his hips, his ability to match those, especially the intermediate routes, undercut routes, and break on the football. And then he also has excellent explosion, great speed, great quickness, pretty good size. He's a very much a prototype of a man coverage corner. Green Bay doesn't really play into those strengths all the time, and I think they mistreat what they have in him, but I do feel like a lot of it too is just him being a little bit more on it all the time. So he's number 3, but he could easily be number 1 in any season at any point throughout his career. At number 2, Pat Surtain of the Denver Broncos. The second Pat Surtain to be a dominant technician of a corner. And that is exactly what I love about Surtain. We don't often talk about the ability to be a technician at the line of scrimmage, to be able to understand a receiver's strengths and weaknesses as a corner, to be a student of the game, which is exactly what Pat is. Because his father was in the NFL and played Hall of Fame level cornerback, this guy is as schooled as any corner at a young age, which it's extremely dangerous to think of that. You know, somebody like Stephon Gilmore, he took like 3 or 4 years to actually get to that level. This guy just came right into the NFL, well-schooled, well-taught, and a technical master of the position. He's not the fastest, he's not the biggest. Now, he's got really good hand usage at the line of scrimmage. He's really savvy. And honestly, his weakness is being too smart for his own good. Like, the only times where he really gets beat is where receivers trick him into his study of their game. Like that one Devontae Adams play. That is like an example of he's too smart for his own good sometimes, where he knows exactly what an offense wants to do, so he jumps it, and then he gets beat because of it. But other than that, this guy is really, really technically sound and so frustrating for a receiver to play. That's why he's number 2. My number 1 corner in the NFL entering 2023. I do not care. So don't give it to me in the comments. I do not care that he is a rookie. Sauce Gardner is the best corner in the NFL. And all you gotta do is look at the stats. They are outrageous. So you study him coming out of college, where I was absolutely baffled at how anybody could think that Derek Stingley was better than this guy. because I've never seen a corner out of college play so much man coverage one-on-one, but then also have the length and the feet combination. It's just absurd. So he can switch directions exceptionally well and be able to jam you at the line and always be first because his arms are longer than yours. And he's got great size too. And he's got the confidence, bravado, all of that to be a shutdown guy. And that's exactly what he did from day one in the NFL. And it did not matter who he was playing. It was Sauce Island. It's like the next TREVON in New York right now. And it might be for quite some time, man. This guy has all-pro, Hall of Fame trajectory all over him. He's so good. Like, you look at the tape, and then you watch his NFL game, and then you look at the stats, which don't even make sense. He's the best corner in the league already, and it only took one season. And I know that usually you don't want to do this with the corner position because of the volatility. I have no doubts that this guy is going to be in the top 3 at the very least next year as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe. We will see you in the next rankings video. I hope you guys are really loving this series. I always have fun watching the players. It takes me a bit more time to go through all the videos, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And we will see you in the next video. Peace.